I'm Miriam Joy and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to do the Fly in White gourd, and this was one of my most popular classes that I taught with a little hummingbird on it, and we're going to walk you through it step by step. And I teach a little bit differently. I teach and then I tell you when to pause and do that part. That way you don't have to do the whole thing. Go back to the beginning and say, what did she tell me to do, so that you have time to complete each section of the gourd as we're working. So let's get started on our class today and have lots of fun. Okay, we're going to start with a bottle gourd. You also could do a Chinese bottle gourd, which is a little bit wider up here as well. And if you wanted to put this pattern on a round gourd, you can do that. You just wouldn't have to do the top. So whatever you're comfortable with, that is fine. But if you use a bottle gourd, we want to leave our top a little bit wider so that we can get the pattern up on top of that. And I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to mark a line, and when you're doing this, you turn it, but you also push down on your gourd as you're turning all the way around to get that line on where to cut it. Go ahead and cut the line, and then we're going to talk about spray painting the inside. Now that you cut and cleaned out the inside of your gourd, we're going to spray the inside, and we're going to use a black spray paint from Walmart, the 98-cent black, and it's flat. And what you do is you take it, and don't be afraid. So one time you're going to use spray paint, spray it all the way in and get it nice and good. And don't worry about the over splatter, and don't worry about doing the rim, because we're going to paint the outside with the black acrylic paint. I don't put spray paint on the outside of my gourd. When I'm working with it, it has more of a chance to bubble and stuff like that. So go ahead and get that sprayed on the inside. Now we've got the inside done, we're going to go ahead and paint our outside, and I'm just going to use acrylic paint. I pick up the big bottles of apple barrel from Walmart. You can pick up some nicer paint. Martha Stewart's got some really nice black. That's up to you what type you want to use. And I base coated it, and you need 2 coats of black for it to cover the whole thing. So we're going to get that nice and base coated, and then after it dries completely, I go ahead and put a light coat of the spray that I'm going to finish over the top of it, and I'm going to use my crayon gloss. And what this does is this gives us a nice coating to help keep the gourd clean, because we're working with the black and white. But don't worry, I'm also going to show you how to touch it up when we get it all done. When you got your DVD, you should also have 2 hummingbird patterns and the leaf pattern, and you can cut the leaf pattern out and cut your hummingbird's pattern separately. We're going to put our hummingbird pattern on with white graphite paper, and if you're having a hard time finding that, let me know and we'll see if we can get you some. But I like to take my white graphite paper and I make it the same size as my hummingbird, and that way it's easier to work with. And there's a lot of paper in there. It'll go a long ways. We're going to take our circle craft templates, and I'm going to take the 4th one from the middle and kind of see where we want this to go. And the reason we're doing that is to place our hummingbird. And I'm also going to be using the stabilizer, which is a really nice thing if you have ever worked with gourds. You can order it off of Bonnie Gibson's site from Amazon, and then she gets credit for it. But if you work with gourds, you're really going to want that. So we kind of position where that's going to go. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure we have our white graphite paper the right direction. So let's see. There we go. So it is the shiny side down, and then I am going to put tape, and I'm going to use Scotch tape. It does make a difference. And one of the things I also suggest that you do when you're using your patterns, first is make a copy of it. That way you always have a copy. Don't use your original. And we're going to see where that belongs. And we're going to put our pattern, and you want a nice smooth surface. You don't want it too far down that your pattern's going underneath. And this is going to fit right about there. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to tape that on. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more tape on it. I should have sanded my gourd. He's not flat on the bottom, and I want to make sure that this is, if you have a clock, that this is right at the 9 o'clock when he's sitting straight up and down. And another thing you can do when you're working with patterns so they lay flat when you're putting them in is come in and cut your pattern, and then you can move those parts over top of each other and they'll lay flatter. So that's another nice thing to know when you're working with a pattern, and it'll lay down better. See how that lays down better. So let's turn this guy this way and see if he'll work a little bit better for me. There we go. And make sure we have him positioned right. And when I'm working with my graphite paper, I always trace with a pencil. Some people trace with a stylus, but I like to know where I have gone. You don't want one that's too sharp. This one's almost a little bit too sharp. And we're going to trace over all of these lines. And get our pattern on the whole way. Now when you're working with a pattern, just remember this is an idea. This doesn't have to be exact. If you think a stroke goes somewhere else, then put it somewhere else. And our tail feathers here. And make sure you got it all on. Make sure all your lines are there. I didn't put my dots in. You could put your dots in if you wanted. That's just kind of to fill that area up. And so go ahead and get that pattern on. Once we've got our pattern on, we're going to put our circle back on. And again, this is the fourth circle from the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the beak come out, and we're going to put the rest of it, and think about this part right here being in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and put this circle on. Now remember, if you need help holding it on, you can use the removable glue dots. Cut them in half and do that. So we just simply go ahead and put your circle on. The first thing we're going to do is teach you the basics of wax design. And if you've taken a class from me or you've watched my video and you've already learned all this, you can fast forward through this part, that's fine. You'd be amazed though how many people sit through this part again, even in a class, and say how much they picked up or little tips that they didn't catch before. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to have you note is I only use Crayola crayon. I don't use any other crayons. If you've ever worked with or colored with a different type of crayon, you notice that it's not as bright and it's a lot waxier. So this is a thicker product and you get a brighter color. So it is important that it is just Crayola crayon. I try and do most of my classes in the 24 pack so that you always have that available to you. So the next thing we're going to do, well, the next thing we're going to talk about is our low temp melting pot. This is a low temp melting pot. If you've ever had a hot glue gun, this is the low setting on a high to a low setting. So we need the one that has a well. The well is where we're going to actually put our crayon. We also have a chimney in it so that we can keep our tools warm when they're not in use. And we also have the wood piece on it so that the tools sit in it without falling out. The one thing that I do not like about this is the cord comes to the front, so you will always have that towards you. I always tell you, if you're left-handed, put it in the top left of your corner of your tray. If you're right-handed, put it in the top right-hand corner of your tray. I always work on a tray. I tell the story about when I first started playing with this. I had 6 of these, all full with wax, hooked up to a power cord, went around the corner and happened to catch the power cord, and I had wax fly everywhere. So ever since then I've been working on a tray, so it helps to catch you. We also have 3 pot trays that are individually divided that are very nice. I didn't want to put it on this video because they take up too much room for everything I want to show you today, but you can see those on my website, so those are really nice as well. So it's real important that you have the low temp melting pot. I have tried different melting pots. While they're good for other things like the round one, they're flat, and because of the little part of the well, you use most of the time on my products I use less than 1 crayon to do a project. So by just using that little tiny part, that's why we need that. So it's real important. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our hobby knife, and that is another thing. If you happen to notice, I have a hobby knife with a shovel nose, and I like the shovel nose. I don't prefer to work with the flat ones because gourds aren't flat if you've ever tried to work on one. So this one seems to do really well when we get ready to remove our wax and work with that. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to cut the paper. Now when you do it the first time, you're going to cut just above that Crayola symbol on the crayon, and I just cut it straight down, and then hopefully it isn't a sticky one, and we're going to peel that wrapper. And then I pop it. I never try and cut it. And then I pop it into 2 pieces. And we're going to put that in that well, and you're going to notice that's starting to melt immediately. The reason that we broke it into the 2 pieces, you can see that pieces on top is kind of going around the well, and we want as much as we can get directly into that well. Never ever put it into the chimney. It just makes a big gigantic mess, so we want to make sure that we don't do that. So we're going to take that and put that there. And another thing I wanted to tell you is never cut your crayon like this if you can help it, because your thumb is right behind it, and trust me, it doesn't end well. I've done that in several classes and I've had to run and get a band-aid. So when you're cutting your next pieces of your crayon off, take it and push down on the crayon and cut the little piece off that way. We want to keep the well full. Right now it's perfect. When we get about 3/4 or under, your strokes start to get smaller. So that's why we cut the little pieces and keep adding them into the well. So that's why it's really important to keep that full. We want to keep that full as we're working. The next thing that we're going to talk about are our wax design tools. And I'm showing you 3 of the 4 that I have in my set right now. And I have a number 0, which is a 2 to a 3 millimeter, a number 1, and a number 2 tool that I'm working with today. And these are much loved, as you can tell. And each of them has a different size ball on it, so they actually make 2 size strokes. In the tree class, I'm going to kind of let you see how far each one pulls and kind of let you pick which one you would like to use as you're working. So we're going to stick this one. I'm going to use the number 2. The number 2 is the easiest to learn on, and I'm going to put another one into the warmer and go to that in just a minute. I'm going to tell you the most important thing that you need to remember when you're working with the wax design. It's really important and a lot of people forget it, so please make sure you're paying attention. You have to warm your tools. If you take a cold tool and dip it into your wax, it's going to look like that, and you can see it sticking, and you're going to say, what did I do wrong? So make sure that you warm the tool. It only takes about 15 seconds to set it directly in there, or keep it in your warmer as well. You don't have to have it into your warmer first. You can simply set it into your wax. Some people think they have to warm it up in the warmer. You don't. You can simply set it into your wax for about 15 seconds. It does take just a little bit longer in the winter, so just make sure that that's nice and warm. Now, when we were looking at the wax, the low temp melting pot, it has a slide on it down to the bottom of the base, and it's deeper down here at this very bottom. So it's real important that we go down to the deepest part of that, and if you have one, you can look at that so you can see where the deepest part of the well is. We always want to go to the deepest part of the well, and I always tell people to touch the bottom. Don't come out the sides, because that actually takes wax off. So it's real important not to come up the sides or anything like that. When I have a class or you're practicing, I always tell them to use the crayon colors that you don't use a lot for other projects. So practice with your colors that you don't like as well, or they're starting to build up. So that's why I have like an orange and a purple, because I don't use those as much in my classes. The next thing I really want people to pay attention to is when they lift it, people get nervous and they'll go back and forth and not realizing that they're not touching the bottom again, and that takes wax off of their tool as well. So you want to make sure you're going all the way to the bottom and touch it. The next thing that we do, we don't even realize we do. So while you're first starting this, I want you to sit there and watch yourself. You take it and you knock that drip off. It's a natural instinct in us that we want to knock that drip off. So really watch yourself. Another thing that a lot of people do is they'll not know where they want to go on their gourd, and they'll sit there and hold it as well, so it's cooling off, or be talking to their friends. I always say you either need to be in the well, putting on your stroke, and then returning to your well. Never have your tool out where it is cooling off. But once you start working and you have that down, you don't need to warm it each time. It stays warm. So we're going to go all the way to the bottom, and what I do is I touch it and I pull it straight out. Now see how I've really got my hand to the side of that, and I'm putting that there and I'm pulling it. So set your hand, rest your hand on the gourd so that you have control of that stroke. And I'm going to change colors here. For one reason, I want the darker color to show up a little bit more, but I also want to show you how to change your color out as well. To clean your tool, you simply just take it while it's warm. It's much easier, and just wipe it like that in your paper towel. But we're going to take a cotton ball, and we're going to divide this cotton ball into half. And slowly, don't put your finger in there, it's hot, and I like using my number 0 tool because it's the smallest and I can get into the corners with it. We're going to slowly push this in. If you go too fast, it comes up over the sides and it starts to make a bigger mess, and you're going to be amazed how easy this is to clean. And remember, we've only used one cotton ball. This is the other half that we're finishing cleaning this with. The more you keep this in a ball, the easier it is to push around. So we've cleaned that out, and we're going to put in the purple color, remember, just above the Crayola sign, and slit that paper down and pop it 2 pieces right into the well. Alright, you're going to see how fast that starts to melt. And then we're still working with our number 2 tool. We're going to give that, if you've just started your color for the first time, please make sure that it melts all the way first before you use it. But if you're reloading a color like it is now, you don't have to wait for the whole thing. You can just keep on working. But we're going to go back to where we left off about setting your hand down on your gourd. And it's easier with a gourd than it is just a piece like this. A lot of times I will be setting it down and I will hold it with my hand. You also can practice on paper, but never throw any part of your gourd away. There's always something you can be doing it, whether it's practice pieces or even old gourds that won't work for anything else that have a bad side to them or caved in. You might be able to practice on one side of them. So there's a lot of things that you can do. So we're going to set that down and we're going to lay it to the side and we're going to pull it. And we're always pulling it towards us. If you're a painter, you always pull it towards you, never away from you. It's much harder to do it that way. And I warmed my tool for about 15 seconds, and we're going to go. We're going to lay our hand down and we're going to pull that stroke. Now, if you see, I don't pick my hand up. I let the color run out. Now, this stroke is perfect. See on the sides where it's not quite as smooth as this first one? I actually didn't let the tool warm enough up in the very beginning. The second one, it had cooled off just a tad. So if you get these edges that aren't quite real smooth, you need to warm your tool up just a little bit more. So we're going to do another one. Make sure you're not knocking it, hitting it, or taking any of your paint off, and pull it till it runs out. Now see how much smoother that is, and you're going to notice the more you practice, the more they're going to be the same size. And the ball controls the length and the width of your strokes. So that is how we determine the size. And I held that out for just a second, so let's put it back in and warm it up for just a second, so we don't have one that we don't like. Now another thing, as I get a lot of people in here and they want to do a stroke and they want to go like that, well, it's going to look just like that. You don't want to do it. Another thing is if your tails start to skip, you're pulling that too fast. So if you can see, I'm doing a nice even pulled stroke. I'm not hurrying it. I'm not doing it too slow or too fast, just nice and even and pulled. So we're going to try our other size tip. Now this guy's been in here warming. If you don't clean it and you've put this in here by mistake and it's still got wax in it, simply take your Q-tip and get that wax out. That's all you have to do. So we're going to put that one in there to warm, and this guy's still nice and warm. So we're going to do him. And this is a little bit smaller stroke. See the difference between this size and this size? He's a little bit smaller. So we're getting nice strokes out of that. So I kind of want you to know what size tool makes what size stroke. And I'm actually going to set the smallest one in there. We're going to play with him just a little bit. But we're going to talk about if you happen to make a mistake, let it dry. And then come with your hobby knife, and I'm always working at an angle. I'm never going straight up and down. That's when you start to scratch your gourd. Is always come underneath it, and see how we got underneath that, and it's removing so much nicer. So I get about that first half off, and then I come in, and now I'm working the other direction towards me. And we simply take that off. And if you have a little line like this, you can also take your gum eraser. And the fun thing about working in my studio is if I didn't have it, I can grab it. So that's where it makes fun, is you can get to see all my bloopers. And we're going to come in here and we're going to finish removing any of that we needed to. Okay? So you get redos in this. So I want you to practice removing some of your strokes as well as putting them on. So we get redos and do-overs in this. And that's what's so great about this wax design, is we know we're never perfect. So, okay. Now I have warmed this little guy up, so we're going to try to do him all the way to the bottom at the top, all the way down. See, he is smaller. Okay? So he's making wonderful little lines. And don't think about just straight lines. Fleur-de-lis. There's all kinds of fun things. I actually hit a bump in my gourd here, but you can go with it. You cannot go over this part of your gourd because it's wax and it's already drying. It's not going to look good, but you can bump up next to it. You can bring it in beside it and go across, especially its tail. And because there's not as much wax down here, you can get away with going on that part. So you never want to try. I have a lot of people that when they're doing my classes want to put the stroke on and they want to come back in and mess with it. Now see how that's starting to look really bad? This is already drying. It's amazing how fast a stroke dries on you. Let me show you an example. See how it's nice and shiny right there? I'll put a new one next to it so you can see how fast. As soon as it turns dull, that is dry. So you would never want to try and come in here and fix this because all you're doing is messing it up. If you have a stroke that you don't like, remove it. Never try and fix it. The next thing we're going to talk about is dots. You always want to go, the size of your dot is the size of the tool that you're working with. So you always want to keep it the same. Now see those little flecks that happen to appear right there? If you get one or two with a dot, that's normal. That's just the nature of the beast. You can come in if you don't like them and remove them with your little hobby knife or X-Acto knife. It's really simple to do. The other real fun thing with dots is you can come in here and you can do a descending dot where you're actually running out of wax. So that's a really neat effect as well. So practice your dots, practice your strokes, and work with this for a while till you're comfortable with it. Once you're comfortable with that part of it, we're going to get started on our class. First thing we're going to do is we're going to practice on that other pattern that you've got to learn how to use a correct size tool and what works best for you. And we want to remember on all the wings and everything, you're pulling from the outside towards the middle. And same with these inside here, and we're going to do just a couple things different around the face. But if a certain way works better for you, then do it that way. Now I'm going to be using black as my practice color, and we're going to start with the number 2 tool, the largest end, and I'm going to start up here on the outside feathers, and I'm going to pull those in. Now because we're working on paper, it's not going to pull quite as far as it is on your gourd, so keep that in mind. But this gives you a good idea what size tool you're going to want to work with. Remember, the slower you go, the farther you're going to get those pulled. Now see, those start getting pretty small there, so I'm going to switch to a different size tool there. I'm going to go to these outside ones here, and when I get uncomfortable with those, I'm going to switch. If you wanted to go ahead and do these with the bigger one, you can, just you're not going to pull quite as far. Now we're going to come down to the tail feathers, and we're going to do the same thing here. And I really suggest that you do this and get real comfortable with it. If you need to do it more than once, then do it more than once. But this definitely teaches you the right size tool that you need. Okay, now on this guy here, I'm going to pull him from there to there, and I'm going to try this tool, or you could use the next size smaller, and we're going to bring that around. And when you're working on the gourd, these two should reach when you're doing that. So I'm going to switch to my next size smaller, and actually I think I'm going to go ahead and go to my 0 tool and skip my number 1. You could use the number 1, the smaller end, if you wanted. I'm warming up my tool. Don't forget that they're cold and need to warm up for a few seconds. And I'm going to bring that one there. And it'd probably look better if we use the next size up on the in-between one at least. Try to end these all the same point. Okay, so now we're going to work on his head. Now these two we're going to pull from here out, and you could use the number 1, or I'm going to try these with the 0. And on this position, we're going to go from here down, and that's his bottom part of his body. Now on our kind of a fleur-de-lis guy here, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and you're bringing those tails all together there. Try and keep them as neat as you can. And one this direction. We're also going to do the beaks. And the beaks is 2, and pull that just as far as you can. And this next time, come in from the other side, meet with that, and pull that out just as far as you can. Now the other thing I'm going to do is the eyes. Now I'm going to switch over to the small end of my 0 tool, the smallest guy, because I do a lot of detail work with this. And what we're going to do is one direction and one the other direction. You also can put a dot in the middle if you want to. That's up to you if you like that effect there. You can figure out which stylist you also want to do the dots with by depending on how much room you have. If you have more room, you want to use a bigger tool, and you can do as many of those as you want to. but then get really comfortable with that. And then we're going to switch over to our white and go ahead and put him on. We switched over to our white crayon, and make sure that you remember this guy needs stirred a little bit more, and if he drips too much, just simply dip him and take some white out of it so that he doesn't drip quite as much. He's just a little different crayon than the rest of them, and you only need one crayon to do this guy. So we're going to start, and remember we're going to place our gourd kind of flat, and I've warmed up my tool, and I'm going to start again on the outside, and I'm going to pull that all the way. Try to stay on those white lines as much as possible if you can. Now that guy got a little bit small, and he shouldn't be, so I'm going to take him off, and I'm going to do him again. Now I'm not going to worry about going exactly all of that off. I'm going to go right over the top of him. And that one's much better. Even my first one was a little bit smaller. And you can see how slow I'm pulling these. I'm not rushing these, and that makes them go further. And I'm going to switch to a different tool on that part. So I'm going to come in here, do these tail feathers. Or the other wing, excuse me, we're not quite on the tail yet. And remember, this is just an idea. If you think it works better one way, then do it the other way. Wouldn't this be pretty also in a turquoise color or a purple color? And adding a couple of them instead of just one, reverse the pattern. Now the reason this happened is because at the very end I turned my tool, and you pick up wax from the back. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to scrape that off, and I did it again. Sometimes the angle you're working at will do it too. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and get all of those strokes on. I decided to use my number 1, the small end, and we're going to go ahead and fill some of these bigger, and then we'll come back to our 0. So I'm going to go ahead and do these couple in here to kind of fill in, and then we'll switch to our small one on the rest of those. And I'm also going to do this guy here, and all the way to that one. And you can do this with the bigger one if you want to, that's okay. And I'm going to pull the ones around his face. And then his body stroke right there. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do my beak with this as well. I'm going to pull my beak a little bit different, a little bit straighter there. And I'm going to take him off and use my small one. I do not like that at all. So let's go ahead and get those in, and then we're going to come back with the small one. And I'm going to go ahead and remove my beak off with my hobby knife. I went ahead and took his beak off. I've switched to the 0 tool, the large end. We're going to go ahead and finish his feathers up here. And then we're going to do the ones in the middle of him here. Remember to keep that point as clean as you can. make sure the one right there is taller than the other two. And then that guy there. Now we're going to go ahead and do his beak again. And one more time. We got that out pretty far, and I'm also going to show you a little trick here in just a second. I'm going to switch to the small end to do his eyes. Remember, we want one going this way and one going the other way. And then if you want to, you also can put a dot in there if you think that needs it. Now I'm going to switch to my number 1, and I'm going to use the larger one to put these dots in here, and then I'm going to come in, we're going to clean these guys up a little bit. And I went ahead and did several, as you can see, and I like that. I think that just kind of fills that in. And I'm going to take my hobby knife, I'm going to get rid of these guys right here. I'm going to cut that guy off of that one, and then we're going to cut around where this guy should be. Now any of these that aren't quite clean, we're going to clean up with black paint later. But if you didn't like the way your tails ended, or you needed to extend them a little bit, this is the one time we can match our paint to our crayon. So you can come in with white paint and just clean these up a little bit. And I'm going to do that just a little bit for you and show you what I mean. But go ahead and get that part done. Okay, I'm using white acrylic paint, and I'm going to use my liner, and I'm going to have a little bit of water in my brush. And I'm going to turn that around and make that kind of an ink consistency. That's what you use with your liner. And we're just going to clean up or brighten any of these tails that we feel may need to be a little bit whiter. And make them all the same length. If you don't like it, take your Q-tip and take it off and do it again. So I want to get right in here, this guy. So we've got them all nice. And on this guy too, you can come in and make him a little bit longer. This guy I'm going to brighten up just a tad as well. Alright, and we've got everything cleaned up now. And any of these white, we're going to come in that we didn't quite get covered up with the graphite. We're going to come in and paint that with black, but we're going to worry about that after we go ahead and get the circle around. We're going to go ahead and put the circle around him. This time I'm going to do a complete circle. On this one, I have it just pulling out and dots going backwards, and I think that kind of shows movement, but a lot of people didn't quite like that part. So that kind of gives you two choices. Now on this stroke, I'm going to go ahead and draw it on, and it's usually easier if you do it that way, so you have something to fall. So it's going to go around and back up, and then you start in the middle of that tail and keep going. Now I'm having a little bit harder time because I'm coming to the neck here. Don't want that quite up too high. Around and back up. Around and back up. If you're working with your charcoal pencil and it's having a hard time writing, take your lighter or your stove, your flame, and put it in a flame for a while, and it will get really chalky and you'll be able to write really, really well again. Now you may find that the other direction may be easier, so whatever direction works best for you. We're going to go all the way around here. And this would go through onto that side. So you'd kind of just drop it and go in around that beak. Alright, we're going to do this with our number 2, and once you complete, go ahead and put that on, and then we'll put the crayon on. Make sure that you need to add white. If your well is more than 3/4 full, go ahead and re-add your white. So I'm going to start here and work my way around, and always starting the fat part, and I'm using the number 2 tool, the smaller end, and this is going to be fun getting around this neck part here. And if you need to take some of them off, that's okay. And if you're comfortable working with a smaller tool, one tool works better for you than another one, that's alright as well. Remember, try and keep your gourd as flat where you're working at the time. We're getting to that one part where we're going to jump. We're going to go around it and jump it and finish up with the... So we've gone ahead and we've gone all the way around. So now we're going to come back in with a dot, and I want a smaller dot. So I'm going to go to my number 1 tool. I'm going to try the number 1 in, and we're going to dot at the top of each one of those. You could also dot on this side here as well. It's whatever you like. There's no right or wrong on that. Let's do something different. Let's go ahead and do the dots on the inside this time. If you wanted to do both of them, you could do both of them. That guy got a little bit small. Make sure you're loading each and every time to keep your dots more equal in size. Try and keep your gourd kind of straight. Your dots have more paint on them, so they will run a little bit or want to go a different direction than we've completed our circle. So let's go ahead and get that part done, and then we're going to start working on our leaves. Now this is our leaf pattern, and this is the top and this is the bottom. And the one thing that I did on this gourd that I would do different is I have these too far back. I want to be able to see them when I look at the gourd. So I'm going to start with my 2 pretty close, and where this small part goes around your neck, and if you need to draw a line around the edge, is kind of where we're going to start our leaves. And we're going to go ahead and put our pattern on. And I'm using the white charcoal pencil again. Remember, we do have those available for you if you need them. And I'm going to do the other side as well. I want to make sure I've got it kind of matching the other one. I think a little, let's scoot that back just a tad. Make sure we've got those lined up. And then when I get back here, it's going to see how much room you have for, and if you have room for 2 more, then go ahead and do 2, and I do not, so I am going to go ahead and do 1 more. So whatever you have room for. We've got the wind blowing like crazy outside today. Spring is here. Okay, now I'm also going to do them on the top, and you can bring these down as far, these are a little bit shorter because my gourd was a little bit shorter. I'm going to bring these down a little bit further, and the first one I want to do right in the middle. So I'm going to put that guy right in the middle there. And I need to take my own advice and go heat this guy up. And I think I actually don't want it that short or that long. I'm going to make him shorter. So you can see how you can adjust it however you think it should fit. I'm going to go ahead and put a line right there so I know how far I'm coming down. And I'm going to do straight across from him, I'm going to do 1, and I'm going to divide this guy into 4s. You can also do it into 5s, however you think it fits. Now see, I'm lining up with this guy back here, so that's good. And you see how I just measured off my 4, I just eyeballed it. I am not an exact measurer. I know that drives people crazy. It drives me crazy to measure. Okay. So go ahead and get all those on, and then we're going to start putting on our leaves. There's one other step that my students really found useful, and that was dividing this in half so they had a line to follow. So I just took a piece of paper and put that line, make sure you get it in the middle, so right down the middle. So go ahead and do that to all of the leaves, and that's probably make that a little bit easier for you. I went ahead and added some more white to my crayon, so make sure that your well is full again, and make sure you don't have too much that it's going to drip. I might have just a little bit too much, so I'm going to take a little bit out again. And we're going to start at the bottom of each leaf, and I'm using my number 2 tool, the small end. We're going to start right down the middle, and we're going to pull it up just as far as we can get that all the way up there. And then we're going to come off to the side, and I want you to think about always ending up. I have people that instead of coming this direction, they go this direction. So I want you to think about always pulling that way. We don't want to have them come in. So we're always pulling them, thinking about hitting that center line. So keep coming all the way up. And then I start putting a little bit of curve into them as well, instead of real straight. And we want to come up all the way to where we started and get that first one in there. Now we're going to come on the other side, and if you can kind of keep them across from each other, that's great. If you can't, don't worry about it. There is no right or wrong. You're going to find that one way is easier to do it than the other way, and that's okay. Just remember to be pulling them towards you. Alright, so we've got that on. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start right about where the wax kind of starts getting really light, and we're going to add a dot. And we're going to do that reloading each and every time all the way up that center line, and that just really helps bring those together and fill that in so that you've got that all done. Now I want you to go ahead and do all the leaves on the bottom, and then we'll talk about the top. Now that we've done our leaves around the bottom, we're going to go ahead and do them around the top. We're going to start the same way. I'm still using the same tool. You could go down a tool size if you think that you want to. That's totally up to you. And I'm going to do same way, and I'm going to go ahead and do them one on one side and one on the other. You can see how that guy ended up a little bit smaller, so I'm going to take him off. Let's do him again. And instead of worrying about everything, what we're going to do is we're actually going to fall off the edges. You just pretend like you're painting it right towards that center, and you're going to fall off the edges. So I actually had 3 strokes that I came off the edge, and we have that all nice and neat. So we're going to go ahead and do the other 3 just like that. Now that we've got those all on, we're going to go ahead and we're going to come back and we're going to add some dots in here. I'm still using the same tool, and I'm just going to add 3. And I've got more room, so I'm going to add 3 descending dots down here. Now, if you didn't have as much room, you could put 1, or you could use a smaller tool. That's up to you. So again, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and 3 dots here. And then I'm also going to come down here and do 3 dots there on each of those. So go ahead and go all the way around and put those on. Now feel free to add anything you want to, any type of decoration in between. I'm going to go ahead and add some dots here, coming down to kind of fill that in a little bit. And anywhere you kind of think it needs it. Now on this top part, I took a couple, like we did going around our circle, and I had room for 2 there in between each one. I don't have quite as much room. I'm going to do something a little bit different on this one. I'm going to go ahead and kind of do a fleur-de-lis, and I've jumped over to my 0 tool, the large end, and I'm going to kind of go around and around, and then I'm going to have a meet in the middle. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to do a descending dot down from that, and I kind of like the look of that. So whatever you kind of feel that needs in between those, or if you don't want anything in between those, there is no right or wrong, like I always tell you. So go ahead and complete that. Put any of the dots, fill in anywhere you think it needs a little bit more of something or not. And we'll come back to the next step. Now that we've got our design where we want it and everything, we're going to come in with a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, and I'm just going to damp it. This is found in your bathroom sections and at any of your stores, and we're going to take off our charcoal pencil. And don't worry if there's parts that you can't get off, because we're still going to come in and touch up our black paint. In any area where you kind of messed up and the wax is messed up, don't worry about that. And you want this just damp, you don't want it wet. We're just taking off all of our charcoal pencil. And you can see I don't have to scrub very hard. This is just coming right off. Now this will leave a little bit of a chalky residue behind, so then I get a damp paper towel and wipe it off. And then get my gourd nice and dry. Okay, so we've got him all done. I don't even have this guy damp. See if he needs to be damp or if he'll just come clean just like that. Alright, so go ahead and get that done, and then we're going to come back and touch him up. Now that we've got them all cleaned up, we're going to come back with our black paint, and it needs to be the same paint that you base coated with. So make sure that it is, and we're going to clean everything up. Now it's going to appear a different color because this is going to be shiny underneath, and what you're going to have is going to be flat until you base coat it. So don't worry about that. Go ahead and just clean it all up with your black paint, and the little tiny areas that you need to clean up, you can come in with your liner. Your bigger areas, you can come in with a flat brush and clean up just whatever you need to clean up. Just come in and clean that up with the black paint everywhere. I've got some spots because I had this gourd bouncing around. It was a gourd class, so I'm going to do some base coating all the way around him. Now that I've got it cleaned all up, we painted all of the lines that showed. We also painted over any little black dots that may have occurred. We're going to talk about varnishing it. Now, one of the things I want to mention though before we do that is why we use black acrylic paint. And when I first did this, I did it with leather dye or ink dyes, and you can see the different spots, and it's spotted. And then when I wanted to go back and clean it up, then it was a different color again, and over time it's just spotted more and more. So that is the reason when I'm doing black and whites, I only use acrylic paint. You don't get that spotting, so that's real important to me. And when we're all done now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to varnish it, and we're going to use the varnish that we used when we sealed it the first time. And then we're going to talk about a couple of options. Normally I would have you just do 2 to 3 coats of that, but if you want it a little bit more durable, and I wanted to tell you how durable it is. When you're scrubbing it, you're not going to pop these off. My husband, I got into black paint there, was saying, you know, you need to tell everybody how durable they really are, because people are afraid to kind of scrub on them, and you shouldn't be afraid to, but we do want to go ahead and put it on and make it a little bit more durable. Now, you guys have been asking for something a little bit more durable than just the spray varnish. Now, go ahead and do the spray varnish so it all turns one color, but after you do that, you can put the 3D lacquer on, and you can put it on just the white parts if you wanted to, and then spray varnish again, and it would all go into one tone after that. So don't worry about that, but that would give it a little bit more harder coating. You could do 1 or 2 coats and then hit the varnish over the top. But if not, just go ahead and put 2 or 3 or really good spray varnishes over the top, and I use gloss on mine, and I like the gloss look with that. So that is our Flight in White Hummingbird class. Come on over to miriamjoy.com, where you can find all of our wax design tools, from the tooling to our 3D lacquer. So anything like that you need, it is available on that website. If you have any questions about today's class, please email me at art@miriamjoy.com. I hope you had a great time, and just take this and build on it. We also have patterns available on the website so that you can create more. Thank you, and God bless.